I just finished watching season 3 of The White Lotus. As a matter of fact, I finished all 3 seasons over the last month. While it's still fresh, let me talk a little bit about season 3 and my takes. The backdrop is really, the spiritual and sensual backdrop of Thailand. And this season dives headfirst into the themes of karma, temptation, and human beings' souls, like our soul struggle between belief and desire. I'm going to talk a little bit more. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about like all the main characters. And the first one is Rick and Chelsea. I absolutely loved this couple and their storyline, even though it's a very sad ending for them. I think Rick's storyline is the most visceral to me. We see a man torn between vengeance and love. Ultimately, I think he chooses both and loses everything. His girlfriend Chelsea warns him very early. She said, "We're linked now. If something happens to you, it happens to me." And I think that line is very painfully literal. And Rick's life has been shaped by a lie that Jim Hollinger killed his father. And when he learns that Jim is actually his real father, I think his whole belief system is shattered. As a matter of fact, when Jim called his mom a slut, I think at that breakfast, I think completely lost it. And then during the last moment of his life, when Jim told him that I am not Jim, but Sir Tala told him that Jim is actually your father. Like he just completely lost it. He chooses violence. He kills Jim, and that act pretty much seals his and Chelsea's fate as well. I looked up the title of the finale, which is Amor Fati. It's a Latin word for love of one's fate. I think it asks us to embrace life's events as necessary, but White Lotus complicates that a lot. In Thai Buddhism, karma says you can escape cycles through discipline and enlightenment. Rick obviously fails in doing that, and Chelsea dies in the crossfire. Of course, it's bad luck, but she sort of predicted it. In previous episodes, Rick tried to free the snakes, but in doing so, I think he became one himself. So that's their storyline. Now, next one I would like to talk about is Belinda and his son, and her son, Zion. So I think it ended up being a twist that nobody saw coming, right? Season one's gentle healer, Belinda, returns and makes the most morally murky move of this series, right? She discovers Greg, aka Gary, Tanya's possible murderer. He's still alive and doing well, hiding in Thailand, and he offers hush money. The initial number is 100K US dollars. And then her son, an ambitious MBA student, sees the opportunity. It's a business opportunity. And he tells his mom to ask for $5 million. That's a huge jump in number, right? And Belinda eventually gets it. But this is not a payoff in my opinion. It's a spiritual death, right? Since we're talking about spiritual, the subject of being spiritual, right? I think it's a spiritual death. Remember back in season one, Belinda was the one being left behind, but now he leaves Pornchai and the healing center that they dreamed. They basically were planning on it, right? Just like Tanya once left her, right? So it comes in full cycle, but in my opinion, it's darker. And this season's core theme, belief system, burns brightest here, right? Belinda trades in her spiritual calling for material gain, and she becomes complicit, maybe even criminal. Now she's richer, but is she truly free? I don't think so. The third storyline, right? The storyline between Gaitok and Mook, played by Lisa. So I think at the end of the day, I see the death of innocent, right? So if you really look at it, no arc captures inner conflict more poignantly than Gaitok's, right? First of all, he's a Buddhist. He's a peaceful human being, a dreamer, but he's also in love with Mook, a woman who only values strength, power, and ambition. I see disappointment in Mook's eyes when they went to that Thai fighting match. And also, whenever Gaitok told her, "Hey, I probably shouldn't, I should change the job," I see the disappointment in Mook's eyes. At the end of the show, Gaitok faced a choice, whether to kill Rick under orders or just walk away. Because at that moment, Rick is unarmed. He's trying to walk away, but Gaitok chooses to shoot him, cold, calculated, like a execution style. To me, it's devastating because we've watched his slow descent. Right, he earns Mook's love, a bodyguard promotion, and then loses his soul. I remember the monk warns earlier in the show, right? You've lost connection with your spirit. I think it's not just a line; it's a eulogy to Gaitok's innocence. The next one is an interesting one: the Ratcliffs. The Ratcliffs family might be rich, but they're deeply bankrupt in spirit. Timothy, the father, learns his business empire is crumbling, and considers mass suicide to spare his family the shame of poverty. And his wife, Victoria, clings to comfort, takes pills, right, to seek comfort. And what's her life purpose? I don't see any. And their daughter Piper flirts with Buddhism before retreating to luxury after staying there for one night. And Saxon just lives for status, women, and money. Only their youngest, Lachlan, shows some spiritual depth. He's open, he's very curious, he's actually willing to let go. It is no coincidence that his near-death hallucination is of monks. Right, he saw those monks just kind of waiting for them as he's ending his life, and I think he's the only one who could survive without their wealth, and that actually saves him. Even though I think it's a little bit ridiculous that he came back to life after a near-death experience. At the end, Tim chooses to discard the poison, but the damage is done. They return home, with no money, potentially jail time. It's just irony. The next one will be the storyline of the three ladies. I think they're frenemies. Jacqueline, Kate, and Lori. They start off as I would say caricatures, right? They're privileged. They're petty. They're very performative. They just live on the outside, and I think the show digs deeper into their souls, right? Their trip forces confrontations, their betrayals, and their old wounds being reopened. At the end, Lori actually delivers a monologue that recenters everything. She said, "I don't need religion or God to give my life meaning. Time gives it meaning." I think it is one of the season's most poignant moments. Whatever she said there. I think Lori, she rejects, any sorts of belief systems, Buddhism, Christianity, not out of nihilism, but because of friendship, memory, and presence. She feels like they're enough. In a season that revolves around spiritual trade-offs, she finds clarity not in a temple, but at a dinner table with her friends. So just to summarize, I think season 3 is fascinating. To me, I think it's best of the 3 seasons. Some people might argue season 2 is the best, but to me, season 3 isn't just a murder mystery. It's a meditation on fate, belief, morality, and the shadow side of our desires. I think the questions Mike White tries to ask us is, what do you truly believe in? and what are you willing to trade for your own comfort, love, power, desires, and lust. So I just feel like the whole show continues to peel back the layers of luxury, exposing the rot beneath the roses, all the beautiful things. Just like, Rick's snakes, right? The truth, once freed, will strike back at you. So that's basically my 2 cents on the show, and I'll probably do another video on season 2 and season 1. But fascinating show. The ending can be very controversy, but I just feel like it's a fascinating show, very entertaining, and also at the same time resonates with audience, right? It makes you think, what you really want, which direction you want to go in your life. All right, that's all. Thank you. Bye.